Welcome everybody, Happy New Year. This is your resident meeting, your first resident meeting of 2023, coming to you from the Longwood Room at Village on the Green, and also being recorded on Channel 3. Hello to all watching on Channel 3. This is the first resident meeting of our new executive director, Joey Mukherjee, and Joey will give his presentation in just a few seconds. I just want to take the time to acknowledge a few things. First of all, welcome to, as you know, this is brought to you by the Resident Council. This is our report to the residents of what went on last week at the Resident Council meeting, and we'll get to that after Joey does his presentation. So welcome to our council members, our new members on the council, and residents all. I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge our newcomers. There were 4 that we welcomed by name at the council meeting. June Wilson, who moved into C300, Selma Mandel and Francis Blanco, can you all hear me? Okay, moved into Villa 126. Garrett Watkins moved into C220 on the 9th of December. I think somehow we failed to mention him and I wanted to get him in there. Dick and Diane Conkle are now in A304 temporarily, and then to A312 when it's ready for them. And then there were 2 new names that were added this week. Charlotte Karsh who will be moving into 310, E310, but she's temporarily in B222, is that correct? And Al and Laura Granger. Laura is spelled L-U-R-A, but it's pronounced Laura. Granger moving into Villa 147. So those are our newcomers, names to get in your head and greet when you run into them, and let's make a special effort there. I also want to acknowledge our remembrances. Last Saturday there was a lovely celebration of life for Dennis Dorsey. It was on January 7th. And there will be a celebration for Bob Rays on January 20th at Annunciation. That won't be here at Village on the Green, but that'll be on Friday, January 20th. And then I also want to acknowledge Marilyn Schmidt, who lived in C116, passed away January 8th. You'll see the picture out there. And her family members are here. We've seen them in the Heron Club. And so if you run into them, please greet them and offer your condolences. So with that, we will go to Joey and his presentation, and after that I'll go over the minutes of the council meeting and what we did there, okay?
See, you're safe. I didn't hear your name.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me? In the back? Good. If I start to trail off, please raise your hand. I'll make sure to enunciate into the microphone. So, thank you so much for the warm welcome many of you have extended to me. It has been a lightning 3 weeks already for me, and I'm starting off with a softball, a budget presentation to you. I have had an opportunity to go through this presentation with the Finance Committee and from our home office. The team presented this, so I've been armed with enough information to be dangerous, but I welcome any and all questions as we go through this. If I do not know the answer, I promise I will get back to you. So I've got a little notepad here to make some notations and whatnot. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is the 2023 budget as approved by the board. I do want to share a little bit about the budget planning process with you. It starts in July, so I feel like as soon as it's closed, it starts again, and runs through September here at the community level. There are numerous efforts that go through, that begin during that process. One of them is the capital review meetings. So that's where we'll work with the home office, community representation to identify what are the routine capital needs that we have, what are some of the special capital projects that we're asking for, and begin that process. We'll work with our sales and marketing teams to get a good understanding of occupancy, where we are with our current goals, where we need to be for the next fiscal year for all levels of living. We'll do external pricing analysis, so we'll look at our competitors, try and understand what kind of monthly service fees, programs, entry fees, what is that looking like across the landscape, both here locally in Central Florida and really throughout the rest of the state and in the country as well. Our human resources team, mostly driven by the home office, is doing extensive wage and benefit analysis. So they have a sense of, are we making any considerable changes to our benefits programs, what's happening with wages throughout the industry, and what could we anticipate for the following fiscal year. And any other expenses as well. A lot of work to kind of work through that process and identify that. In October, the board approves the monthly service fee increase, which is kind of a key part to informing our budget development efforts. In November, we'll finalize that. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of tweaking and whatnot. And then in December, the board approves. Any questions there? All right, I'm doing well. All right, so a little bit more about building the budget. Sources of funds, just as a reminder, the monthly service fees that you pay, obviously a very large contributor to that, and we'll talk a little bit about the percentages of our revenue budget and how that's made up. From the higher levels of living, especially in the health center, Medicare and other third-party private insurances, a big portion of our funds, entrance fees paid by new residents, any financings that range by the home office, and investment income. Use of those funds, we're obviously operating expenses, entrance fee refunds for residents that are vacating, debt payments, and capital expenditures. Are we all familiar with net operating margin? It's essentially kind of the standard bearer to understand how are we doing in terms of our percentage revenues to expenses. So that's one you'll hear me refer to often and throughout this presentation. So speaking of net operating margin. First column, you're going to have the 2023 budget. Operating revenue, I'm going to do some rounding here, 27 million in operating revenue. And then operating expenses budgeted to be 25.9 million. So the net operating margin in terms of dollar figures expected to be just over $1 million next year. I did neglect to mention at the beginning, I will make this presentation available on Touchdown, and then I will also, I talked to Sue, I'm going to get a copy to her so she can have some hard copies for you at the front as well. But give me until the end of the afternoon to do that. But if you do need to delve into these figures, I'm certainly welcome to get a hard copy. Obviously, compared to the 2022 forecast, we don't have finalized numbers yet. A loss of 1.2 million. So certainly not a great year. Better than 2021 actuals, but still not where we anticipated to be. Operating revenue, so this is kind of getting into where are our revenues that make up that 27 million that's budgeted, where do they come from? Just over half from independent living, and then the health center, about 30%, assisted living and memory support, 8% and 4% respectively, and then finally home health, 4%. Any questions there? Sir?
Joy, is the health center, is that equals skilled nursing?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay.
Yep. I'm still getting familiarized with the lingo myself. Health center to me, yes. Skilled nursing. Yes, sir. Good question. So occupancy. For the 2023 budget, first person occupancy projected to be about 76, almost 77%. Second person occupancy, almost 28%. Certainly you see an uptick from the forecast for 2022, but our sales team did a wonderful job and got ahead of attrition. We'll talk about specific numbers in a little bit. So we finished pretty strong in 2022 to give us a little bit of a head start in 23. this really is an average over the course of the whole year, anticipating starting January, you're probably 74% building momentum and finishing the year just at, I believe, 80% is our target, yes. Which is, Al will mention, ahead of our actuarial anticipation, which I believe is 2027, 2028. I'm sure, yep, I'm getting a nod. So we are, we'll share, we are going to be more aggressive than even what's in our budget, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. There's a question, yes sir?
Yes, the facility you came from had a 94% occupancy. Have you had a chance to look at what we're doing and how that could be a very important thing to us?
Certainly. The comment was the community that I came from had very strong occupancy, 94%, and certainly part through the interview process has been what perspective can I offer to our team and our organization to build on that success. I will tell you that did not happen overnight. We did take a dip throughout COVID, as many providers did, especially in the skilled nursing realm, where COVID policies and the ebb and tide of those policy changes did have quite an impact. But throughout kind of Westminster's history here in Central Florida, independent living occupancy has been strong. I will say it's not apples to apples. I know many of you are familiar with Westminster Communities of Florida and Westminster Winter Park specifically. It is a different type of contract in terms of the life plan community it offers. It's a type B as opposed to our offering of a type A. And there are differences within that. Yes, both are governed by the Office of Insurance Regulation, but there are important differences. So, sometimes folks say, oh, the price at Westminster Winter Park is so much cheaper. In independent living, there may be a little bit less compared to your monthly service fee here, but there, the assisted living and skilled nursing costs, while discounted from the market rate, are only about 20% less than market rate. So, a health center stay at Baldwin Park could be $15,000 a month. That's a cost that you wouldn't necessarily see because of the way you've mitigated that risk over the course of your residency here. So there are differences. I will say, I think there's opportunities. I will say, Sarah and her team have been very candid about some of the challenges they've faced and the help that they need to be able to overcome that. And I'm 100% committed to helping them navigate that path so we can see very good occupancy levels. But it's not just the local effort. We have to make sure the home office is aligned, that the resources are all aligned toward meeting those objectives. Everything I've heard from the folks at the regional level and the corporate level give me great sense of optimism, but at some point the rubber's got to meet the road and we have to see that in action. So that is very much a focus of mine early in my tenure to address the occupancy levels. It is also something that doesn't happen overnight. You know very well, I'm sure, throughout your journey. While there are some folks who make a quick decision and within a few months move in, for many of you, it's a process of 1 year, 2 years from when you start having those initial conversations to when it's time to move in. So, some of that work, obviously, we need to see movement quickly, but we are also laying the groundwork for future success as well. So we need to temper our not expectations, but temper our expectations. Yeah, I'll say that. Yes, sir. Another question back.
Does second person occupancy mean couples?
Yes, correct.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yes, sir.
It's a simple question, but I don't know.
Sir.
The 2022 forecast occupancy is 70%. What do you anticipate the actual to be, or why isn't
We
there
don't
an
know.
actual?
Was it 75.8?
We ended at 74.42% at 195.
So we ended at 74.42%. So we beat forecast on that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So we'll get down into a little bit about the different levels of living and how that we are forecasting there. Health center or the skilled nursing facility, out of the 48 beds that are available, essentially we're projecting that 44 will be full. Again, just like we did with independent living, there is kind of a ebb and flow that's budgeted. So it varies from month to month, but this is an average that you're seeing. Definitely super proud to report today that the health center is full, 100%. I don't believe that's the first time. I mean, really, they've been doing very, very well, exceeding their budget numbers, hitting 100% in terms of occupancy, and they continue to carry that into 2023. In general, with higher levels of living, so with skilled nursing and assisted living, we don't budget over 92% as an organization. Some organizations are more aggressive than others, but I do appreciate that 92% really, when you look at the ebb and flow of admissions and discharges, you do need a little breathing room there from a budget perspective. Especially here at Village on the Green, we have a very large population of Medicare A and managed care residents. They're typically here for short term. We don't have a lot of long-term care residents. Missy just stepped out, but I'm sure she'd correct me, but I believe they had almost 44 admissions and discharges just last month. So the turn there is quite a bit. And sometimes you'll have 6 admissions in a day and 6 discharges in a day as well. So it does help to have a little bit of breathing room built in there. Here again, you can kind of see that echoed with the Medicare A at 22, private at 5, Medicaid 1, the HMO managed, very similar to your Med A population. So that is the majority of the breakdown there in the nursing center. In assisted living, out of 36 available beds, they're targeting budgeting for 33 to be occupied. Again, we've been very strong with occupancy there of late, being full 100%. So I anticipate us to be able to meet that expectation from a budgeted perspective. In memory support, of the 18 available, budgeted to have 16 occupied. Again, seeing strong performance there of late at 100% occupancy. So when you look at the revenue that those higher levels of living bring in, it really does have a profound effect on our ability and maybe hide some of the sins that exist on our independent living revenue side. Before I move off from occupancy and projections, any questions there? Okay. So now we're going to get into total operating expenses. This is broken down by department. First column there is the 2023 budget. There is kind of a percentage of the total budget that is there. You can compare that to the 22 and 21 forecasts and actual. I do want to draw your attention to a change there in general and admin, which is that first row. You'll see that the cost there is almost just over 10, it's $10.3 million. Compared to the 22 forecast of 7.1. That is not my salary, I promise. What we're seeing there is kind of a change in the way the organization accounts for benefit costs and taxes for employment taxes. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. In previous fiscal years, what's happened in each department, there's been a line item where the insurance and taxes are all rolled into that department, right? What we're doing now is we're going to put all of that, we're going to pull it out of the different departments, and we're going to put it in human resources, which falls under general and admin. A couple of reasons for doing this. One, that's not really a controllable expense when it comes to a department director, right, when they're making decisions. We really want, when we look at the department's financial statements, we want to see controllable expenses to get a very good sense of, are we managing our expenses? Are we doing a good job with the items that we can control? So we're going to pull that out, put it in human resources. The other thing too that this allows us, when we can kind of put it all in one bucket, we can see over time, okay, how are we doing as compared to our budgeted expectations for benefits and taxes? Are we utilizing more than we thought? Are we utilizing less than we expected? We can compare the budget to actuals a little bit better. It's a little bit more difficult when it's buried in each department. Any questions about that? Basil?
So Joey, will that mean reductions in the other areas here?
So certainly, the monies that were in those departments would result in reductions. Now, there may be corresponding increases in expenses that may offset some of that. But yes, that's why you would see, something like, especially memory support, going from a 2.9% to a 2.5%. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say expenses are probably, controllable expenses are probably flat, and that little drop there in 0.4% is really related to the reallocation of those benefits and taxes.
Well, the small one may be an idea, because it looks like leisure services has been reduced about $70,000.
And honestly, I'm sorry.
You see what I...
Yes, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. And really, I mean, that's really more for me I need to get familiarized and, work with Rhonda to be able
It's
to...
probably
Yeah.
an unfair question, but
No, not unfair at all. It's a good observation, and just, as I become more knowledgeable, certainly be able to speak to the exact breakdown there of that.
Thank you.
Certainly. So wages and benefits summary broken out. For 2023, you can see 12.9 million there, the total in the last row, compared to 12 million in 2022 forecast, and then in 2021 annual, the 13.3 million. Some of that reduction, you can say, hey, we've been paying significant monthly service fee increases in the name of wage increases. Wouldn't we see that translated there? Yes, that is in there, but also there's fewer people, right? So reduction in FTEs. I'd say that's probably a right sizing, and that's one that has been initiated, and one that most likely I'll have to do some fine tuning on as well. I can't speak to a lot of the specifics about what has led up to that, but do just want to be very transparent. There is that kind of assessment that's going on of how many people need to be on the bus, what seat on the bus do they need to occupy, and how much is that going to cost? Questions? Sir?
Joey, has the use of agency or contract employees affected the variances in these numbers?
Yes, so the question is, has the use of contract or agency employees impacted that? Yes, absolutely. I will say the organization does not budget for that, so any use of that is certainly going to be seen as a variance on our finances.
But it's included in these numbers or not?
Oh, I see what you're asking. Truth be told, I don't know. I would have to find out to get you the specific. My guess is no, it's usually a separate line item, usually under contractual expense, so I don't think it would be driving this, but I'll have to get back to you on that.
Joey, can I follow up on that? Just to make sure I understand this, the 2020, it says annual, that would be the actual wages was...
That is my understanding, yes, sir.
So that'd be $10.5 million. And this year, we're going to, for 2023, we're going to have 10,004, so a couple $100,000 of reduction over the 3 years back. Even with the increase in salaries that we pushed through last year, that would seem to suggest that we are going to have to me, a significant FTE adjustment.
I think that's an accurate statement. I do believe much of that work has already been done,
Okay.
but I do know that there is some more work to be done as of yet. So I think we're close to where we need to be in order to realize those budgetary figures, but we do have a little bit more ways to go.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All very good questions. Thank you. Entrance fees. So the anticipated net amount received, 16.8 million, with entrance fees refunds 4.8 for net cash received of 11.9. So that's based off of a budgeted 44 closings for the year with an estimated number of attrition in 32. So that's a net of 12 residents over the course of this fiscal year. Average entrance fee on the return on capital, $382,000. Oh, somebody's calling me. I didn't know that was a thing. We're gonna close that. Okay. Average increase of 5% in the entry fees. Questions? Okay. Annual rate increase, which I know has given you heartburn for some time, 7.9%. Again, the entrance fees, which I mentioned, of 5%. I don't say this to make you feel better, but maybe make you feel a little bit better. I've on good authority that our friends at Westminster Winter Park are beginning a 10% increase in April. So you're not alone. I say that not to say you should feel better, but just to say you're not alone. There's significant movement in rates throughout the communities here in Central Florida and really throughout our industry as a whole. But I do want to say that you have my promise that I understand that it is painful for you and that I will, along with the team, work diligently to be as judicious as we can with our operations, so as that we're doing what we need to, so we're not contributing unnecessarily to additional increases in the rates. Questions there? Okay. Key factors. I'm not going to belabor this too much because I'm sure many of you have seen this, but really wages is a big driver of that, both historically and still going forward. Anecdotally, I'm hoping to see some easing of that, but I do know we're going to see specific jobs move probably more than others, whereas in the last maybe 12 to 18 months, we've seen many jobs move altogether. Inflation, I have a slide about that. We are always trying to be judicious with our projected occupancy levels. I think we're going to see additional pressures in the healthcare setting and skilled nursing, both with Medicare A and really the growth of managed care plans here in the state of Florida is going to take a little bit of a bite out of that Medicare pie. But we have a very strong Medicare mix right now, and we're going to do everything we can to maintain that. Inflation, we know the story, right? And this graph kind of charts, from mid-60s all the way through this current year, where inflation has trended. And right now, outside of that ginormous spike there in the 70s and 80s, this is really one of the largest spikes in inflation we've seen. I think we've seen some easing of that in the last couple of months. I think I've seen a couple of figures in the 7% range, but that's pretty significant. It's going to continue to put pressure on our team members, on you, on our operations and costs all around. So continues to be a challenge that we're going to have to be very vigilant managing. Cost increases, so this most recent rate increase, as opposed to the annual cost increases the organization has calculated for the community. Capital expenditures, so this is not the entirety of our capital budget. I know there have been a lot of questions of what's on our capital budget, and I too am asking that question and hope to have that answer very soon. And certainly we'll share the specifics of that capital budget with you. Some of the larger or more routine items that the Home Office shared, apartment refurbishments at $2.1 million, the new wells, which I believe are going in very, very soon, maybe next week starting, we're having dollars set aside. But really, especially with the Finance Committee, we'll delve deeper into the capital budget in its whole and the specific line items as well. Any questions there on that? Yes, ma'am.
What are Soto locks?
Those are actually the electronic door locks that we're trying to move to in all of the independent living. So instead of a key, you will actually have a fob that will be able to record who goes in and out of your door.
Did everybody hear that? Okay, the question was, what are Salto locks? And those are the electronic locks that we're moving to. So moving away from the traditional key-operated lock to an electronic one, which will provide a greater tracking of who came in and out and when. So that's what the Salto locks are. I learned something new today. Sir?
Is the capital expenditures funded from the
No, that was in this budget.
budget or?
So capital expenditures can come from entry fees. They can also come from bond financing. So it depends on which project, and usually there's a pretty clear, like, it's this project and being funded by XYZ.
Are there any corporate reserves that have been set aside earlier?
Question is, are there any corporate reserves set aside? The organization does have reserves set aside. How they use that, I'm not quite up to speed on just yet. Typically, capital projects don't always come out of the reserves. Usually that's more to offset operational losses and maybe drops in investment income. But maybe LifeSpace does it differently. I'd have to look into that for you. But it's a good question. Sir?
The Salto locks, is that, you would use your phone to get in, or your key, or a card, or what?
It's a fob.
It's a fob, so it's a little like
Circular.
RFID. Usually it's is RFID the right word?
Yeah.
RFID tag, so about the size of a quarter that can attach.
Not one? Yeah.
This little blue nub in here, this guy is the RFID tag you would use. You may have encountered it at a hotel where you tap the little credit card. It's almost the same function. You tap it, it would make a little noise, green light, and off you go.
Joey,
Yes?
I may have been asleep, because I didn't realize the Salto locks were even in the budget for this next year. Are we just starting with the new?
As far as I'm aware, that was supposed to be not in the 2020 budget.
So this information, I'll have to get some more detail on exactly what. Sometimes finance and construction pass each other ships in the night on the details. So this may have been an older version, but
Yeah.
You have my promise. As soon as I have more specifics, I'll be happy to share that with you. And if there's a correction that needs to be
It's
made.
been on the list for years. I mean,
Usually it's a phased project, and maybe they just got tagged on for another phase. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the new well was reduced to a nominal 65,000. Is it 120 accurate?
I think that's what was set aside for it, and I think Tony, with his work with the vendor, has negotiated it lower. But I'm never going to give up money, because if I can use that for something else, I will. So let's keep that. We're going to have to edit this part out in case someone from the home office is looking. So, yeah, but that is a good observation, sir. Yes, sir. Net cash flow, so this is in millions. You look at that net operating margin budgeted at 1 million, net entrance fees of 11.9 for a subtotal there of 13. Our debt service, capital expenditures, we'll bring that to 4 million budgeted. Questions? That is the conclusion of the formal budget presentation. Any questions on the budget part? I do have a couple more slides just on a couple of other issues, but in case you had any pressing questions. Okay. All right, if anything comes to mind, I did update my info on Touchdown, has my email address corrected, because I did misspell communities there. So it has been corrected. My cell phone's on there as well. If something comes to mind, please feel free to email or text, and I will get to the bottom of your answer. So one item I did want to share with you that I presented to the Residence Council meeting last week. Ken Poinsett, the organization's Chief Information Officer, has been tasked with kind of a high priority item, which is to develop a cable-based alternative to Senior TV. Senior TV being our satellite dish operated entertainment system right now. He will be down in February to talk with the Residents Council. So I've kind of tasked Anne, thank you so much for being the champion there on that. Resident Council members, I ask you to poll your constituency to get a better understanding of what details, offerings would we want from this cable-based offering. You know, potential channels, potential cost, do you want internet bundled into that? We just want your feedback funneled to the Resident Council rep so that he or she can share that with Anne. We're going to combine all of that so when we meet with Ken, we can present a kind of cohesive and organized, hey, this is what we want from our entertainment package.
Joey?
Yes, sir.
Will this, this job that the CIO has, will that involve looking at internet as well as,
Will it involve looking at the entertainment side only, or will it look at the reliability and the abilities of our internet system?
It is my understanding that it will look at the internet system as a whole. You kind of need more clarification from Ken and hoping that he will be able to provide that at Resident Council meeting in February. But typically, just in my experience outside of this organization, usually projects like these require actual infrastructure work. So you're pulling fiber optic cable or cable through the community to your head end where it's getting distributed. And oftentimes it opens up all sorts of opportunities like better, more reliable internet, Wi-Fi throughout the community, potentially telephone systems going to a voice over internet protocol system. So, you know, it could be that this is initially solve the pain point of channels dropping all the time, but it serves as a backbone for additional services and options down the road as well. So I'm hoping to get some more information from Ken.
Well, just for your information, my experience with it has not been good.
Okay.
And it's been primarily, I think, an internet issue, but I haven't had a reliable phone system for 6-8 months or so. It's just an unsolvable problem, but it may be internet based.
So I'm definitely hearing that, you know, in addition to the senior TV, that internet reliability, phone reliability is also problematic. So while we've got them hostage, we're gonna hit them with all. So thank you, those good observations, and the more organized we are, the more we can hopefully ask for and push. So I'll go to Hugh first, ma'am, and then I'll go back there.
The package that's being developed, will that take the place of senior TV, or this will be in addition to?
I don't know the answer to that. It's a good question. My guess is it takes the place of it, but sometimes there are contractual obligations where, you know, if they signed a 5-year agreement, they still have 1 more year that they have to run. I don't know that just yet, but typically you don't want to get stuck operating 2 things. You just want to focus on one.
Okay, will this result in additional monthly fees for our TV and internet and all?
I don't know the answer to that. I think once we start, I don't even know if Ken is going to have the answer to that just yet. I think right now he's very much in that information gathering stage, and then is going to go to market to see what vendors, products, services are out there. And I think once he gets some information back from that, that will inform the answer to that. I anticipate there's going to be some capital outlays involved with, you know, getting the infrastructure, which are usually typically separated from what is the monthly operational costs going forward. But if that is a concern, which I'm sure understandably it is, that's going to be one we're going to want to elevate to Ken right out of the gate and say, hey, you know, if you're planning on charging us XYZ for this, you know, we're not interested, or that would be a no-go for us. So that would maybe inform some of the solutions he looks at and say, no, that might be a Cadillac product, we're looking more for a GM product, who knows?
Historically, the TV and all has been included in our monthly fee, not as a separate charge.
And I'm accustomed to
that.
there being a basic service, and then there being additional options for folks who say maybe they want a SEC channel, you know, and they go and get the sports package, but they pay extra for that. So usually there's some sort of basic, here's what we offer all of our residents as a part of the monthly service fee, and then a la carte residents could add. I'm accustomed to offering a program like that, so my guess is there probably would be something to sweeten the pot. Gentleman in the back?
Does the change including recording of TV shows or whatever?
I don't know, but if that's important to you, definitely share that. If, having a cloud DVR or, the ability to have on-demand programming is important to you, that's definitely share that so we can make that ask now. So it's a nuanced question. Good. Yeah.
Having come from another facility, did they have a senior TV program? And have you looked at other senior facilities with free senior TVs? I know that Legacy out near UCF has a different server, and that's my question. Has it been looked at?
So my experience has been with Spectrum, which I call the evil empire. I'm sorry if anybody has some Spectrum ties here. The challenges you face with senior TV, I think, are absolutely frustrating. But I will say, going to a provider like Spectrum brings a whole different set of challenges as well. So when we go through the evaluation process, from an operator's perspective, I'm definitely going to be very vocal in which direction we're going. Part of that has to do with who is ultimately servicing this equipment. Here at our community, Tony and his team are taking care of that. When you go to a model where it's strictly Spectrum, you're at the mercy of their technicians. And here Tony prioritizes, our residents and the issues. Spectrum doesn't necessarily do that as well. It also, it brings in different forms of billing, and so if the answer was we're going to go to Spectrum, I would look at it with a yellow eye for sure, and I would probably push back on that. And I'm sure there's some option that's, I've also seen Spectrum offer, hey, we provide you XYZ fiber optic line, and then you do whatever it is you want from there. The Baldwin Park Homeowners Association is embarking on a process where they've engaged a private fiber optic network company to come in, and they're going to lay their own fiber optic network lines and offer their members of the Homeowners Association a flat rate internet and basic cable package. That requires a 10-year agreement, extensive infrastructure. Imagine the cabling being run through streets and then all the way to the outlet in your home. So there's all sorts of ways to kind of skin the cat, but it'll be interesting to see what fits us best. So, as you percolate all that feedback up, hopefully we're going to come armed with the very kind of, this is what we want from our program. Al?
Joey, we get a little bit ahead of ourselves. We've
Sure.
got a long time to go here.
Oh, we got a long time
and I don't
to go.
think you're going to solve these problems today.
No. But I do, talking about them now, again, gets it on everybody's list, so hopefully we don't have any surprises later, but all good questions, and I'm sure as you have discussions with your neighbors, others will pop up, so just send them our way. All right. Any general questions? Rumors? Sorry, Dr. Voss.
I've been trying to get, if we can get Medicare approval for the home health care, our program, it'll be source of income, and it would also improve the quality of care. And I've been hoping there'll be some information. It's been a number of months and years really, but we haven't made any progress so far.
It's a very good point that you bring up. I did meet, it's kind of through my orientation process, Christine Dixon, who is the new director for the organization of home health. And I know one of the things she has in her extensive history is taking essentially personal care services agencies through the Medicare process. And I do believe that is one of the things she's been tasked with. I think she beats me by maybe a month, so I'm sure she's going through the learning process as well. But just in our brief conversation, I do know that especially here in Florida, that is a big focus. And the synergies, especially in South Florida, with the 4 communities in such close proximity, are very tangible, and then we benefit from that as well up here in Orlando. So as I look at growing our top line revenue numbers, absolutely home health and having a Medicare Part A certification is key to that. So I don't have concrete information, but I know we're having those conversations, and I'll certainly keep you abreast as that develops.
And one comment that really about the cost and etc. and the budgeting, fundamental to this all is our occupancy.
Always close to your mouth.
If our occupancy is 94%, as your other community was, we would not have some of these issues that we're discussing. Thank you.
No, occupancy cures a lot of ills, hides a lot of the sins on the expenses side. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have several residents that have doctors that are currently in Winter Park that are moving down to the Innovation Tower, which is where the Advent Health Hospital is. We need to be able to provide transportation so that they don't have to go through the process of actually changing doctors rather than getting transportation to get down to the Innovation Tower.
Sure. Is that outside of our range or something?
It's just something new.
Something new. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I'll talk to Rhonda and David and make sure we pivot accordingly.
Thanks.
Any other general questions? Okay, so this is my first time at it. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do Sarah, and then we'll do Tony, and then we'll do Chris. I hold the Chris and Tony last, because there's usually questions, and I want them here for that.
I'll take that.
Thank you, Joey. Good morning. Hi, I need to move this down. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So Joey gave you a lot of information, so I'm gonna not try to give you information overload, but I do wanna let you know where we ended 2022. So just a little bit of a look back. So in 2020, we had 19 move-ins and 24 move-outs. We went backwards. In 2021, we had 21 move-ins and 39 move-outs. Keep in mind, that's also when we opened the new health center. I am pretty proud to announce in 2022, we had 34 move-ins, so the highest move-ins we've had in 10 years. And we only had 30 move-outs, so we grew by 4. We're gonna keep this trend going. We ended the year at 195 residents, which was 74.42% occupancy. As Joey said, we've got some big goals this year. The budget is for 44 move-ins. The goal that home office has given my sales team is 59 move-ins. You all had the same reaction my team did. We all closed our laptops and we went, okay, what are we gonna do? So, we're gonna talk about some positive things because we need to hold on to the positives and what can we actually do to affect change. You all have a big part in this. Last year of our 34 move-ins, 9 of them came from resident referrals, almost a third of them. Think about that for a minute. You all have the best testimonials of why you chose to live here. You all are experiencing this every single day. So you can sell it far better than my team and I can, which is why we come to you a lot of times and we're like, hey, would you mind having dinner with this person? Would you mind meeting with this person for a programming or a lifestyle class and taking them around? You're going to see more of that. Now that we've opened the campus back up, you're going to see a lot more of that in 2023. So please don't be shocked and surprised when my team calls you and says, hey, I have this person I really want you to meet. I think you'd get along with them really well. And they're curious about life at Village on the Green. So I do just want to recognize, and I know some of you are in this room, we had move-ins this year from the following people. Carolyn Tolles, Dick Altman, Susan Craig, Hetty Blinderman, Bob Geller, 2 move-ins from the Caballeros, Jay and Javier, and we had 3 move-ins from Steve and Marilyn Schwartz. So when you put all that into action, what does that really mean for you? You get a free monthly service fee if someone moves in. That's pretty big. That's a few $1,000s. But there's more. But wait, there's more. I'm like the Ronco, set it and forget it, right? But wait, there's more. You're going to get a letter in this week's door hangers. And basically what it's doing is it's outlining a resident referral program. For the month of January, if you give us a resident referral, and you're going to get a little hanger on your door that has a back to it, if you fill out this back and bring it to the sales office and give us permission to call your referral, you will get a $100 Visa gift card just for giving us a piece of paper. We need leads. I need to get to 59 move-ins. I need leads. So this is an easy way to do it. Refer your friends. There's going to be a different incentive every month. Different things we're rolling out. And by the way, the response from our little popcorn bags was so great. That's something my sales team is gonna do for you all every month. We're gonna have a different theme, something that we pull together, because we appreciate you. We appreciate what you do for us, helping us to get new people to move in. It really comes down to you and us working together. So, any questions for me?
Does that include assisted living?
This is an independent living initiative. Assisted living has something different. So you would need to talk with Missy and Shalante about what is open in the assisted living. So, that's it for me. Thank you so much. Next is, oh, Joey.
Thank you. I do just want to speak a little bit about the resident referral program. You know, we're in this together, right? You have a vested interest in the financial success of this community. It is my sincere hope that you'll be able to say to your friends and your family, something may not be perfect, but that you have confidence in administration and the folks working here that they're working on addressing it, right? So I know I've only been here 3 weeks, but really that's kind of my kind of promise to Sarah is to say, hey, you don't need to worry about operationally what's going on at the community level. That's my job, right? But part of that is there are probably some things which many of you have already made me aware of, but other things that maybe you haven't had a chance to talk to me about that I want to hear. And I'll be very transparent with you, what I'm able to do, what kind of time frame we're talking about, because I want you to have that confidence to be able to say, yeah, you know what, XYZ might not be 100% perfect, but I talked to the folks in charge and here's what they're doing to work on it. And we've seen improvement, or, you know, we're checking back in. So that you can have a very honest discussion with the folks that you're referring, so that they're coming in eyes wide open as well. So I just want to kind of put that plug in there that we really do view this as a partnership, and really appreciative of Sarah and her team's efforts to do a pretty big lift. You know, the 44 I thought was aggressive, so the 59 and let's round it up to 60, why not? That's gonna take quite a bit, and I'm definitely going to be advocating for our team to be getting the additional resources to be able to meet those goals, because we can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. So do just want to put that plug in there. All right, Tony, do you have, I did not ask you, I'm sorry, do you have an update?
I do have.
You do? Okay, go ahead.
How's everybody doing? Everybody okay today? So I want to start off really quickly and invite everybody to come to the Plan Ops Committee meetings, whether you are a participant or whether you are an observer. There's a lot of information that is given out at that meeting from the Plan Ops perspective. There's a lot of coverage there, and there's a lot of questions that can be answered there. So I suggest if you get the opportunity to come to that meeting.
When is it?
The next one,
First Tuesday of every month.
she's got first Tuesday of every month,
At 10 o'clock.
10 a.m., yep.
In Sable.
Disabled,
First Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m. in the Sable.
correct.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So let's talk a little bit about the new construction. As far as updates go, I have not gone backwards from mid to late March for completion. I'll have an update tomorrow afternoon as we have the 2 p.m. construction call with the vendor. So, you know, if there's questions additionally that come up, you're all more than welcome to email me or contact me or whatever in regards to that. I wanted to reach out and talk to you about getting some of the plans that were put on hold pre-storm and pre-holidays are rolling back out. There's some information that is going to be coming forward in regards to the engineering aspects. I know there was a lot of questions that I had. I got a few emails in regards to the building A, the water, also the engineering portion to the left side of the Abbas's Villa. So those are projects that are moving forward. We actually have some commitments to get that moving forward in a direct way. I also wanted to touch a little bit about, and it kind of ties into the sales portion of it and how we're moving forward. I saw on the budget, you saw that I had a considerably large budget for apartment refurbishment. So here's what that's all about and how that's moving forward. We now, I believe, have 12 stock units as well as 10 or 11 additional units that are underway for completion, most of which are on the sold side or on the reserve side. So the sales team is working really hard. We're working really hard to give them the stock so that we have those apartments available for them ready to move in, right? Which had been a challenge in the past. That was a situation where we didn't have stock and ready rentable units and everything was a refurb constantly. So we're getting ahead of that curve, folks. So hopefully by the end of 2023, we have done very well, our due diligence, and completed, I would say, in the ballpark of 80% of our empty or vacated units, bringing those apartments up to a beautiful standard that will help sales, bring clientele in and give them an opportunity to, you know, live here at Village on the Green. I personally love it here. I love the work that we're doing. I think we're moving forward in a positive direction. I also want to say thank you to my Plan Ops committee. They very much, you know, keep their eyes on the ball for you folks. They really do advocate for you. While we are a relatively large community, our staff is relatively small in conjunction of it. So there are things on occasion that I have to compartmentalize or I have to push to a back burner to where it's more efficient time. So when I meet with the Plan Ops committee, they remind me of those things. Okay, Tony, we started this back then. We have this going on. These are our questions. They really advocate for you building by building. So get to know your building rep. If you don't know them very well, get to know them. If you have questions or concerns in regards to plant operations or housekeeping or grounds, any of those things, I highly suggest you get involved with those committees and you get involved with your building reps, because when I mean they advocate for you, you got some bulldogs, folks. They're really, really good about keeping me diligent. Beyond that, I think that we want to talk about some of the projects that are coming up and some of the things that you saw on the budget. I'm going to double check on the Saltos. I'm not really 100% sure that is a 2023 project, but I will verify that and get back to you folks. That'll be something that gets brought up at this, the committee meeting for plant operations. I'll open up for questions a little bit in a little bit. But one of the things I also wanted to remind everybody is that we, using the TELS program and getting acclimated to that program, right? When we have 200 residents and a staff of 5 maintenance technicians, it can be daunting, right? So consider if each of you had 1 work order a day, multiply that times, you know. It can be daunting. So I want you guys to understand the reasons why we ask for the 48 hours on the non-emergency work orders. Obviously, we're going to take care of your work orders that are emergent: flooded toilets, AC issues, heating and AC issues, water leaks, things that those are going to be immediate. But if you have a light bulb out or you need something that needs a tweak or you just need some help with some things, continue to use the process, call it in a work order. We are trying to balance this plant operations system so that it's more effective and highly efficient. We have a number of issues that we get brought to us from the building to building, right? Well, the paint's chipping here or the light bulbs are out there. And balancing the work that needs to be done infrastructure-wise and then the work order system and balancing that as well. We are refining that system. We're going to start initiating where we have all of our technicians who are assigned buildings to the first half of the day when most of you folks are still enjoying your breakfast and not at home or sleeping in or what have you, to pay attention to those needs that you guys have and those wants that you have at your buildings or at your particular villas. Right, it's not going to be work order related. So when you start seeing the information come out that we are going to be processing work orders in the afternoons, right, that kind of solves two problems for us. One, it gets the attention that's necessary. That is, the buildings need attention. It's errant, apparent, and obvious. There are some definite places for improvement there. So we had to come up with a way that we could allocate the labor and the time to get those things done and raise, the concerns that are raised by you folks. But also, the afternoons is more advantageous for us because a lot of folks who are requesting appointments for maintenance to arrive, right? We want to set appointments. Well, it's very difficult to work that TEL system where we can have specific appointments. I'm going to be available on this day and that day. I need to book you at this time. Well, that's great until there's another emergency and we can't make the appointment. Or, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to initiate it where you have the non-emergency work orders will be within a 48-hour time frame in the afternoon from noon forward, within 48 hours of the time you called in your work order, right? So, and I think we're going to start seeing a more efficient way of doing things. I think we're going to start seeing improvements in the visibility of your buildings and the visibility of, just the whole infrastructure. That's the way we have to do things. And I think it'll work out well. We are also working on an entry form so that when folks move here to the village, that it's a very easy go-to guide, how the TEL system works, how maintenance works, how the work order system works, the phone numbers and the proper people to call for those types of things. And once I have that completed, I'll make sure that everybody gets a copy. It'll be on a door hanger or available on Touchtown. You'll be able to see it visually there. So we're working to try to be more efficient. We've heard you when you come to these plan-out meetings and you are saying things, and we are working diligently to manage and try to get those worked out where everybody can have be happy and have an understanding of how the system works and that we're actually addressing the concerns. But that being said, we had to modify how plant operations works on a day-to-day basis so that we could accommodate everybody, for lack of a better term. Any questions? Yes, sir. You have a question?
Oh, pardon me?
Yes, sir.
I was thinking about, I'm not familiar with the TEL system because I'm relatively new here. But,
yes, sir.
I was just wondering if you got a minor thing that needs to be done, like installing a TiVo or something like that. Can you do that?
We actually have a really good resident IT guy. So, yeah, we can help you out with that. I also want you guys to understand that we give our new residents 3 hours worth of extended service. Right? So when you move in, if you have a piece of furniture or something like, or pictures that need to be hung, or, just some general help. I mean, obviously we won't schedule you 3 hours consecutively because we can't, but at an hour at a time, we give you 3 hours of extended service for free.
Okay.
Yep. And that's as simple as making a call to Sue. Sue at the front desk, she'll put in a work order. Yep.
That was my next question. How do you do that?
Yeah. Anybody else?
I'm glad you said that. I didn't know that myself.
Yeah. Well, again, I think over the course of time, we had a lot of challenges when I first got here, and basically my goal was to jump on the refurb. That's where I saw the major necessities in refinement and cost. Right? We were spending a lot of dollars and weren't getting much for bang for our buck. So that was the biggest task that we saw when I got here. Again, now we're working more closely with the healthcare center. I am interviewing for a new lead on the healthcare center side. Peter has graciously agreed to come back over onto the IL side, which is yes, that deserves a round of applause for sure. And he's, I promise you'll get to see him. He still is actually working for both as an IL technician. We utilize our technicians over there at the healthcare center as well, so you'll be able to see him over there. But we're glad to have him back. So when you see him, welcome him. I think it's a great thing. And I'm interviewing several life safety experts for our healthcare center. I believe everybody knows that on the life safety portion of it, that's my baby. We went tag-free on our ACA survey. We've managed the gold seal, so we have to really be diligent on the healthcare center. So that's my next targeted task for improvement.
And we get through to Peter on, through Lenny?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, he is now in IL, independent living, and listen, I watch it, he's loving running all over to see you folks, because he was pretty isolated over there, and the life safety portion of that building is pretty daunting, right? So it's very repetitious, and it doesn't give you a whole lot of time. Yes, sir?
Tony, maybe I need to understand something too. I've been using the resident app, sending my work order information to the resident app to Lenny. What's best?
Well, so here's what happens when we get that email through the resident app, right? When we get that email, Lenny will, he's pretty gracious about it, so he goes ahead and he'll put the work order in the tel system for you. But if you call and leave a voicemail or call Lenny directly, he'll put the work order in for you as soon as it's available.
So the call is better,
It's absolutely better because it's all in one place.
And does that go to Sue or Lenny?
Lenny is the go-to guy. What I want you to do, obviously, right? If you call in a work order that has exceeded 48 hours, it's very, very important that I'm aware of that, right? It's super, super important. Now, I do have access, and I look at it every day. I look at them when they're closed out, which technician gets them. But in the grand scheme of everything, I can't be doing everything at one time. So any input you would have, listen, I called in a work order. So what I can do, what's beautiful about the tel system is if you called in a work order 48 hours ago, I can absolutely see the day, the time, everything when that work order was put in. So there's accountability with it, and it's great. But I would prefer, yes, we do the one source. Call Lenny. It's the work order number. Yep. Anything else, folks? It's always a pleasure. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Chris McCutcheon.
Good almost afternoon now. Thanks. I'm going to keep my my presentation kind of high level, but as always, I come with props. So the first thing that I wanted to touch on was a couple of small items, just a few small updates. The culinary committee will be meeting tomorrow, and we do have a lot of new faces on that committee. So if you are not familiar with your building rep, ask around, make sure we know who our building reps are. One of the main topics of conversation that we're going to have tomorrow at our meeting is the feedback from all of you about the reservation or lack thereof reservation process. We have our own feedback on the operations side that we are going to be sharing with the committee, and then I want to have all the resident feedback as well to your committee members, so we can make an informed and educated decision on how we want to proceed now that we've gone through this, what was 30-day, but now almost a 45-day trial of the no reservation system. The second thing that I wanted to bring up is that coffee machine that I talked about at our last meeting has arrived. It showed up yesterday. Now we are just waiting on the special order milk product that goes into it. So relatively soon we'll be able to order cappuccinos, lattes, macchiatos with just the push of a button on that machine up in the Heron Club area. And then the last thing before I get into my big presentation update that I want to go over is that we have procured a couple of additional vendors that are able to help us out with some of our gluten-free items. And then additionally, we did reach out to a vendor yesterday after some feedback with meeting with the Building 8 Building A at their meeting about sugar-free options. Reached out to one of our vendors to talk about some more sugar-free dessert options as well, so that way we can kind of expand a little bit of our healthy portfolio for all of you. The big topic that I want to address is that we are going to be in the next week, actually it's going to be in tomorrow's door hanger, or come out to you guys on Friday, is we're going to start sending out a flyer every month with the top 3 items that we have heard from your feedback, from your comment cards, from the phone calls, emails, the Happy or Not system, and it's going to be our kind of generalized responses to the top 3 comments and what we are planning to do to address those items. So some of the items that we have on our agenda actually coincide with a lot of the visitors that you have seen over the past couple of days walking around. We have a lot of support from our Unidyne team, as I said in the last meeting, that we would be going through a 60-day revigoration process. They're all here now. So actually I have one gentleman in the back right here, Serge, who's you may have seen walking around the dining room. He's our director of hospitality and is helping us out with everything front of the house and service related. We have a director of field engagement, Suzanne, who's walking around as well. Erica, who is one of, I can't remember her title all the time. It's marketing. It's more than just marketing. She's another field engagement person who works directly with Suzanne. And then Masoom, who many of you have already met, is another gentleman that's walking around in the evenings. He is our regional director of operations, and he is specifically dedicated to the LifeSpace account in the Florida market. So he is traveling. He's spent a few months down in the South Florida markets, helping them out with their revitalization. Now he's up here with us. And over the next couple of months, he will be in here every single week for multiple days a week. So by all means, continue to ask me questions. But if you have any questions, he is very open and approachable to ask questions as well. But some of the things that we're going over in this revitalization is what I kind of showed in the last meeting, and I wanted to touch on again, is our new server training program. So kind of what Joey had said about whenever you come in for the first 3 weeks and it's a little bit of a whirlwind, a lot of our kids go through that same thing as well. It's their first job, they don't know which way to look, and so some of those training lessons kind of slip and fall. And so we have this 13-week program because there's 13 weeks in the quarter of the year, so once a quarter we go through the program and then restart again, that every week we go through a different module, and these modules are broken up across the steps of service that we're going to focus on. So right now we are in week 5, and week 5's module is greeting and seating. So it's all about proper greeting at the host stand, talking with you as they escort you to the table, proper greeting at the table, just a whole bunch of different things as far as that particular step of service goes. We spend the entire week reviewing over that in our pre-shift meals, and then we move on to the next module the next week. And we're going to keep on repeating this process from now until forever, because this training program is not just a Unidyne training program. It is a LifeSpace training program. LifeSpace and Unidyne collaborated together to come up with what they wanted to have service look like across the enterprise and at all the different communities. Another thing that we are working on in this revitalization process is kind of updating a lot of our appearance, a lot of our equipment. And one of the things that came up in the resident council meeting was our favorite steak knife right here, which I heard somebody, yeah, you can take that for me, thank you. I heard somebody affectionately refer to this as the Crocodile Dundee knife, all right?
Yeah.
So I had mentioned, and all these pieces take time for us to orchestrate, to come in, to have delivered. As of yesterday's Building A meeting, I said, we've got the silverware coming, we've got everything in process, it is on its way. And then after the meeting, the silverware showed up. So we have a lighter weight steak knife for all of us. By size comparison, it is a much smaller, much lighter, much thinner, much easier to handle steak knife than what we've been using in the past. Additionally, In the past, we have tried to order salad forks, only to be told they are out of stock, and they just substituted it with larger dinner forks. So you've had 2 dinner forks sitting on your table. Salad forks have arrived. Similarly, with the spoons, we ordered dessert spoons and teaspoons. We got these big ones as a substitution. The spoons have arrived. So, we are making progress. We're trying to get all these things done for you. But again, a lot of that feedback did come, especially the steak knife, was a direct response of, we heard you, we heard your comments from the resident council, we sourced a new steak knife. Please keep all that feedback coming for us. And then the final thing we talk about is the improvement to our culinary offerings as well. We have, as far as all the directors and corporate level assistants that I've mentioned for the front of the house and service related, we are having support in the back of the house as well. Chef Carlos, who is our regional chef, he's basically kind of Massoum's equivalent on the back of the house portion, dedicated to the life space communities. He came through last week, helped us out with a lot of our organization and equipment processes in the back of the kitchen. January 24th, he will be coming back with himself, another regional chef, Chris Garand, and they're going to be working with our culinary team as far as the cooking procedures, cooking techniques, and then additionally, I don't want to announce it just yet, but there is a nice, fun little innovation of cooking techniques coming up that they're going to roll out across all life-space communities that I'll talk about at the next town hall meeting. But on top of that, then it's also quality of food and what we're offering on the menus. I've heard a lot of positive feedback about the New Year's Eve dinner and the meat that was served on New Year's Eve dinner. So we heard that feedback. That same tenderloin is going to be on next week's menu for the second half of the menu. As you saw on this week's menu, we put rack of lamb onto the menu as well, and I've heard so far that it's been very well received by everyone. Additionally, on next week's menu for the first half of the menu, we're going to be featuring a sea bass special as well. So there's a lot of things that we are trying to do to invigorate this menu and really kind of start 2023 off on a positive note and really enhance our culinary operations. So that's my general overview for everything. But again, please reach out for the more in-depth, detailed comments and concerns. I know that Arlene Gus is our new chair for the Culinary Committee, and she's already sent out a list of agenda items that we're going to talk about tomorrow that were all resident feedback related issues. So these ladies and now gentlemen that are going to be serving on the Culinary Committee do hear your feedback and do bring it up to our attention. So that is a great avenue to continue to ask questions and get feedback. All right, so question?
Do you have the same training program for the servers in assisted living?
We do have it is the same program. We have to tailor it a little bit because it was designed for the independent living portion, and what we've been doing is taking each module and kind of modifying it a little bit for the assisted living side, but we are starting to do some of those training programs on the assisted living side as well. So it's going to be a slow rollout for them, but we are going to start working on them.
I'd be interested to know which, each from week to week, what the topics are for the training program, so we could be aware of which.
Absolutely, I can put that in the next door hanger because it's a
what was last week's?
Last week was menu knowledge and getting to know your chef.
Menu knowledge, okay.
And so that is their what we went over with them in that training is asking the questions of allergies. And so a good example that we used for allergies was on New Year's Eve. We had the meat was topped with a type of crab meat. So if someone says, no crab meat, I want to have this, but no crab meat or no seafood, ask the question, is it no crab meat, I just don't want to have that? Or is it an allergy? Because if we're cooking a pan of the steak with the crab meat on top of it, right next to a pan of no toppings, but that is an allergy, there is still that close proximity cross-contamination issue. So we really emphasize with them about asking those specific allergen questions to make sure that they're providing a safe service for you. But then also the detailed questions of not just of paying attention in those pre-meals where we showcase the dishes for them and asking the question, what is in that sauce? What does that sauce taste like? So if you're all asking those same questions, they can speak intelligibly to it instead of saying, I don't know, hold on, let me go check. And then they run back to the kitchen, run back out, go back and forth. And we have been engaging them in their feedback as well from this training program. We did a full department training this past Sunday and asked all of them, what are some challenges that are in your way that slow down your speed of service? And I made sure to phrase it to not say what would make your job easier, because all of them are going to say something that's just going to make them want to sit in the back and be on their phones. But whenever you're busy and you're running around, what is something that could make your job more efficient? And they're starting to come up based on this training of coming up with ideas. One server said in the back, the way our kitchen is lined out, there's a cooler that they have to open every time they want to get salad dressings. And that cooler blocks the walkway. So if you're in the cooler, you're stopping the flow of service. So we got a separate little pour dispenser that can sit countertop on a bucket of ice, and just that little change alone has created a big difference between the flow of their service. So through that training program, we're engaging them to also think outside of the box and how do we adapt to provide better service for all of you.
The mirrors. The mirrors.
Oh, yes, those were just installed.
Those. Yes.
Those were just installed yesterday. They did put directional mirrors, so we're, even though we do have to use safety words in the kitchen to make sure that we're not having accidents, you're gonna hear less of the obnoxious corner as we're running around the corner, because now we have mirrors that are able to be able to see who's coming around that corner.
That's a wonderful addition.
Yes.
What is the time and place of the meeting tomorrow?
2 o'clock, and we're doing it in the Sable unless I've heard anything else, so it'll be the Sable. All right, well, if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask me or ask any of the wonderful people walking around in suits, and we'd all be happy to answer any questions for you.
Time is of the essence here, isn't it? Let me just say one thing. The council meetings are all open, save one, but all these, the plant, the finance, all these that we've been talking about, they're all open meetings, and you're welcome to come to them. This is we've updated this all the time, but this is dated January 5th. Sue has these at the front desk. They give who the committee chair is and what time the meeting is and where it is. And whenever there's a change, we try to keep Sue updated so we can put out new ones of these. But this is where you're going to find out where you want to go to come to the meetings. And I would also like to say about the plant committee that Tony was talking about. The plant committee focuses on the needs of the community efforts. Your personal needs, you go to Lenny, call Lenny for maintenance for something inside your house. That sort of slips away every year, and we all start complaining about stuff in our house at the plant committee. That's not what it's there for. It's for the community-wide efforts that we're trying to focus on, and they're big enough that we don't have to handle our personal stuff there too. Now, as to the rest of the, I got my face in the thing, the committee meetings, I spoke about plant. Healthcare, I believe Dr. Abbas mentioned that one of the most important aspects to healthcare that's been a problem all along, and that is finding somebody, a nurse who can help us, and also the Medicare issues and everything. Dick, would you like me to say anything else about healthcare? Those are being addressed. They're being addressed at a higher level, and it just takes time. Now, Finance Committee, Al, do you have something you'd like to say?
we're just still organizing for the new year. And so there's no really thing for me to report, but I think from last year, the conclusion of 2022, Basil has a report that he handed to the residents council.
Yes,
and I think he might like to cover some points of that briefly.
Let's do that. And the next Finance Committee meeting is on the 25th, and Abby Nicholson from LifeSpace will be here for that. And so that'll be a big information gathering thing. Do you want to come here, please?
Oh, I can do it from here, I think, in deference to the time. I just wanted you to know that there is a report prepared as of the end of the year by the Finance Committee. It's too much to bring to this meeting and to discuss meaningfully, but it is available to each one of you. And so I encourage you to take a look at it. For anybody that has an interest in the financial wherewithal of the company, that's the place to get that information. And for those of you that got a financial background, you probably noticed that the budget here follows more of a cash flow statement rather than financial statements. For instance, the net operating margin is spoke to boldly, but you won't find net operating margins in financial statements of income statements like you're used to. So there are permutations of the business model within the CCRC business, for those of you that are new to it. It's not the standard business practice. And so I would encourage you to take a look at that. And if any of you have the need or they would like to meet offline when you could talk about it and dig into it a little bit, I would be glad to do that for anybody here. But it's too much for here. That's enough said for today. But the report's available to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Basil. There were other small items that took place at the council meeting, but I would like to say that the minutes to the council meeting go out to everybody, and they go to the building representatives, who then can circulate them on forward to the residents that have email addresses. They're also available in hard copy, so I don't think there's any purpose in me going through every little doodad that we talked about. But I do want to say one thing. Braunhofer said that at his building e-meeting, he asked the residents to update their emergency information. Those are those red booklets that came out, I don't know how long ago, that you're supposed to keep them by your refrigerator. If there's an emergency, it's the first thing that the responders ask for, and we've sort of fallen off the grid with a lot of those. I thought that was a wonderful idea, and I think it's a good idea for all building reps to try to get their residents to do something.
And if we don't have one of those, who do we go to get one?
Sue distributes them. This is kind of a long process. Sales is supposed to give them out at closing. I think there was a gap that happened in our changeover of directorship. But anyway, talk to Sue. She usually keeps about 10 of them. And so we should go to her. That was a glitch that did happen during our changeovers. Some things just fall through the crack, and so we were about 10 behind on those that should have been out there for people, and we'll catch up. So if you don't have a red booklet to put information in, be sure to call Sue or stop by. Others are just incidental things. We had our Brady Wilkins orientation for the kids who are interested in applying for scholarships. The orientation covers scholarships both for Brady Wilkins and LifeSpace, and it was attended. Parents come too, and so now we have some kids who are going to start out. We hope some of them that didn't come, maybe we can capture them too. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, the application season goes on through up until mid-February, I think, then it closes for them, and then the process starts. I think that's about all of the major stuff that happened at the committee meetings. We still have the problem of the lounge in Building A, and when I asked at the plant meeting yesterday about it, the observation was, well, you know, if they don't have a place to meet, they could go to the other buildings. There are people in Building A that cannot go to the other buildings. And so I would like to suggest that surely there might be a vacant room that's been, or an apartment that's been fixed up for sales. And it would have to be probably something different from month to month, but surely some space in Building A could be made available for meetings.
We were offered 118. Oh, sorry. We were offered
Were
118
you? Okay.
last year, but then there seemed to be a problem with paying back or paying off the entry fees. And we were told not to use it. So let's find out if we can use 118 and we'll move our furniture in there.
Let's pursue that a little bit more, because it's more than just people. I mean, yes, I mean, Dr. Abbas has his villa meetings in the Sable, because most of those people can come to the meetings in the Sable, but it's very, very difficult for many of you in Building A, and I know it is.
Yes.
So we'll pursue that.
Thanks.
Is there anything else? I think I've pretty well covered. It's noon. Shall we consider the meeting adjourned? Okay, let's do that.